In this next section of 6.4, we're going to talk about squares and rhombi, their characteristics and their properties. A rhombus is just simply quadrilateral with four congruent sides. So we're looking at a four-sided figure where all of your sides are going to be congruent. That's the simple definition for a rhombus. One other thing about rhombi is that their diagonals are going to be perpendicular. So if I draw my my diagonals inside of this rhombus, what happens is where they cross, because they're perpendicular, we end up with some right angles. We're going to be working with these trying to find missing sides because we end up with right triangles here. So keep that in mind. The diagonals are perpendicular. So a couple theorems that go along with our rhombi. The first says that if you have a parallelogram and you notice that in your parallelogram your diagonals happen to be perpendicular to each other, we can definitely define this specific parallelogram as a rhombus then, because that characteristic is specific to a rhombus. The next theorem says that each diagonal of a rhombus bisects a pair of opposite angles. Alright, so if you draw a rhombus, I'm going to draw it this way, like a diamond. If you draw in your diagonals here, this is telling you that your diagonals at each of these opposite angles is a bisector. So these two angles are congruent, these two angles are congruent. Likewise up here, the angles will be congruent as well. So, the properties for a rhombus. First of all, they have all the same properties of a parallelogram. Alright, there were how many properties for a parallelogram? I'm hoping that you remember that there were 5. Opposite sides are parallel, opposite sides are congruent, consecutive angles are supplementary, diagonals bisect each other, yada yada yada, right? So we have our 5 properties there. Then we also have our 4 sides being congruent, the diagonals being perpendicular to each other, and then the diagonals bisecting opposite angles. Okay, so next is a square. A square is pretty easy. It's just a compilation of a parallelogram, a rectangle, and a rhombus. So one thing that's particular about squares is that we have our 4 right angles, but we also have our 4 congruent sides. Okay, if you want to know what the properties are of squares, well, you have the 5 properties of your rectangle. You have your properties of, the 5 properties of your parallelogram, the properties of your rectangle, and the properties of your rhombus. So taking a look at this example, remember you guys, this symbol for some reason, the computer this is angle. Okay, so the measure of angle ABC, yada yada yada. If you remember, when we talk about problems like these, I want you to fill in your picture first. After you fill in your picture, then I want you to go ahead and worry about what they're asking you. So first off, they tell you that this is a rhombus, so you should know that all of your sides are congruent. You should know that your diagonals are perpendicular and that they bisect the opposite angles. They also tell you that ABC is 50. So if we take a look at ABC here, ABC right here, the whole thing here is 50. Alright, using our properties, we know that the diagonals, because this is a parallelogram, the opposite angles are going to be congruent. So if this is 50, the one down here is 50. You also know that your consecutive angles are supplementary. So if this one's 50, this one has to be 130. Then the opposite angle here is 130. Now going into more specific properties for an actual rhombus here, you should know that your diagonals bisect these opposite angles. Bisecting means that they cut them in half. So this is 25, 25. This is also 25 and 25. Likewise, with the 130, this diagonal also bisects these opposite angles, leaving this 65, 65, 65, 65. I'm going to let you fill in the rest of this, and then I want you to find these 6 specific angles, please. Okay, what was left to fill in were these angles here. Well, we know these diagonals are perpendicular, so we got some 90-degree angles here. So DEC is 90. ADC here was 50. DCE was 65. DAB is 130. ABE is 25, and BCD down here is 130 as well. Remember, fill in the picture first, then worry about what they're asking you to find. All right, last example, they tell you that SNOW is a rhombus. They tell you that angle 1 is 2x plus 20. Label that for me, please. So angle 1 right here is 2x plus 20. Angle 2, label this 5x minus 4. So this is 5x minus 4, and they want you to find x. One of your properties, remember, for a rhombus says that this diagonal bisects these angles. A bisector makes these congruent. If they're congruent, their measures are, yes, equal. So set them equal, solve for x, please. Okay, so you should have had plus 20 equals 5x minus 4, leaving you with x equals 8. If x is 8, that makes both of these what? Let's see, this is 40 minus 4, which is 36. What? Okay, good. So that's 36. All right, number 2. SO tells you the whole length here, SO, is 15. How big is SX? Well, you should know that the diagonals bisect each other, okay, making these two pieces congruent. So if one of them's 15, if the whole thing's 15, all you have to do is cut it in half to find that that length is 7.5. I would like for you to please finish number 3. So pause it and then come back and we'll talk through this. Okay, so they tell you angle 3, which is right here, is y squared plus 26. You should know that these diagonals are perpendicular, making this 90 degrees. So if you set it equal to 90, you find that your y, when you take the square root here, is 8.